Immortal and Oppos, S Journey to Immortality 177. There is only one mountain-splitting flag in the world. It will take some time, so I will have to trouble you to delay them for a while. They are using the river shield technique, acting in perfect coordination. As for that youth from the Qinghan sect, it should be the rumored thunder escape, a technique similar to teleportation. In fact, what Hanli used was not thunder escape, but the legendary wind thunder wings. With this, the treasure hunt in Master Song Kuan's cave came to an end with the escape of Hanli and Marquis Nanlong. Later, while Hanli was leaving the Mulan grasslands, he unexpectedly saved Tang Minghua of the Masked Moon sect, only to hear shocking news from her. Nangong Wan, the woman he had cared for over many years, was about to be married. This revelation struck Hanli like a bolt from the blue, nearly causing him to lose his mind. Because of this, he made a decision that went against his usual principles, to storm the Masked Moon sect and take Nangong Wan away. If she refused to go with him, he would kill her fiancé, Wei Lycan. However, after a brief moment of impulsiveness, Hanli managed to suppress his emotions. He decided to first infiltrate the Masked Moon sect to learn Nangong Wan's true feelings before making any concrete plans. He disguised himself as a qi-refining disciple of the sect and successfully met Nangong Wan under the pretext of delivering a gift. After more than 200 years apart, the two were reunited. The feelings buried deep within their hearts had not faded in the slightest with the passage of time. In fact, ever since Hanli's core formation had triggered a heavenly phenomenon, Nangong Wan had already known that he was still alive. Now reunited, she could no longer suppress the longing and concern in her heart. She told Hanli everything she had experienced over the years. She mentioned that after losing her virginity to Hanli during the bloodline trial, her first thought had actually been to tear him into 1,000 pieces and scatter his ashes to avenge her ruined purity. Hanli did not know whether to laugh or cry, mocking himself for having nearly lost his life back then. Nangong Wan teased him, saying that if she had not inexplicably softened her heart, how could he, with only qi-refining cultivation, have taken advantage of a core formation cultivator? She continued by saying that although she had spared Hanli, after returning to the sect, whether she was cultivating or meditating, his shadow was always present. It grew clearer and more frequent, eventually becoming a heart demon on her path of cultivation. If this heart demon was not resolved, her cultivation would never advance for the rest of her life. To eliminate this heart demon, there were only two options. One was to marry Hanli. Since husband and wife are one, the demon would naturally disappear. The second was to make Hanli vanish from the world forever. At the time, because of the vast difference in their status, marriage was absolutely impossible. After long torment, she had once resolved to kill Hanli. However, fate works in mysterious ways. Just as she was about to act, the 6 devilish sects invaded. She met Hanli again at the 7 sects camp and discovered that he had successfully reached the foundation establishment stage. This caused her murderous intent to waver. She felt that if Hanli could continue to advance, becoming husband and wife might not be entirely impossible. Hearing this, Hanli recalled with a bitter smile how excited he had been upon seeing the masked Nangong Wan, only to be met with her cold and indifferent attitude. Nangong Wan smiled and continued recounting what happened next. The 7 sects were defeated, and each sect began evacuating their core disciples. As a core formation cultivator, she was on the initial evacuation list. However, through a friend in Yellow Maple Valley, she learned of Ancestor Ling Hu's abandoning the tail plan. She guessed that Hanli might be used as bait and thus be in grave danger. At that moment, she seemed possessed, driven by a single thought, to return and save him. But when she arrived, it was already too late. The battle had ended. Most disciples were killed, and only a few had managed to break through. She did not know whether Hanli was alive or dead. Helpless, she returned to the sect to assist the remaining disciples in resisting the devilish path, during which she was seriously injured. After breaking out, she was pursued by junior cultivators. At this point, she revealed a secret. There had never been a person named Nangong Ping. She herself had been the one in disguise. She explained that she had not revealed her true identity because, as a core formation cultivator, she felt embarrassed to admit that she had come specifically to save him and wished to marry him. Moreover, she felt guilty for having absorbed most of Han Li's cultivation. Her original plan had been to use the identity of Nangong Ping and suggest that Han Li return to the Masked Moon sect with her. As long as he agreed, she would reveal her true identity, help him reach core formation, and then marry him. However, Han Li, whether out of greed or a sense of masculine pride, insisted on taking spirit stones to settle the debt instead. She had been left utterly helpless. At this point, a trace of amusement and relief flashed through Nangong Wan's eyes as she shot Han Li a sharp glare. Han Li felt both fortunate and afraid. If he had truly followed her back then, he might have won her heart. Yet, had he agreed to dual cultivation so easily, not only might Nangong Wan have looked down on him, but her disappointment could have dispelled her heart demon, causing her to treat him coldly and casually assign him to another female disciple. After Nangong Wan returned to the Masked Moon sect, she waited until the sect had firmly established itself in the state of Bailiang before sneaking back into the state of Yu to search for Han Li. Unfortunately, the news she gathered was grim. She only learned that Han Li seemed to have been pursued again by the Ghost Spirit sect, while the details remained unknown. Shortly afterward, Nangong Wan's whereabouts were discovered by the Devilish Path, forcing her to return to the Nine Nations Union. From that point on, she never received any news of Han Li again. She gradually became convinced that he had perished, and the heart demon born of her concern slowly faded. Later, she was fortunate enough to advance to the nascent soul stage, naturally becoming an elder of the Masked Moon sect, a position she still held to this day. As Han Li listened to Nangong Wan's quiet narration, his expression shifted repeatedly. Learning that this woman had done so much for him in secret while he remained completely unaware, his gaze softened with warmth. After a long silence, Han Li finally asked what was truly going on with Wei Lycan. At the mention of this name, a cold sneer appeared on Nangong Wan's face. She stated plainly that she had encountered Wei Lycan by chance several years ago during her travels. She had no favorable impression of him and even found him repulsive, considering him a typical hypocrite. On the surface, Wei Lycan appeared refined and elegant, but in private, he harbored vile and depraved thoughts. According to Nangong Wan, at least 7 or 8 female disciples had been defiled by him. There were even rumors that he secretly practiced the wicked art of plucking yin to supplement yang. Regarding his marriage proposal, Nangong Wan knew he harbored ill intentions. Thus, she had rejected him without hesitation. Han Li found this puzzling. If she had already refused him, how had the situation escalated to its current state? Instead of answering directly, Nangong Wan asked whether Han Li knew of the 3 great nascent soul cultivators of Tianan. Han Li naturally did. The Righteous Path, the Devilish Path, and the Nine Nations Union each possessed a late-stage nascent soul cultivator, whose existence maintained the current balance of power. A faint sense of unease rose in Han Li's heart as he guessed that Wei Lycan might be connected to one of these 3 figures. Nangong Wan confirmed his suspicion, revealing that Wei Lycan's biological uncle was indeed one of them, Wei Wuya. Wei Wuya, the Supreme Elder of the Nine Nations Union, cultivated a unique and obscure technique. With a mere gesture, he could kill without leaving a trace, and his divine abilities far exceeded the imagination of ordinary cultivators. Upon hearing this, Han Li initially believed that Wei Wuya himself was making things difficult for Nangong Wan, and a flash of killing intent crossed his eyes. Nangong Wan explained that although Wei Wuya had not acted personally, he had indeed intervened. She revealed that the great elder of the Masked Moon sect was no longer the same person as before, having been replaced by one of her senior sisters. Though this senior sister's cultivation was respectable, she was extremely ambitious and frequently clashed with Nangong Wan. Despite attempts at mediation by another elder, their relationship remained extremely strained. Han Li's expression darkened as he realized the core of the issue. As expected, Nangong Wan continued, explaining that after repeatedly rejecting Wei Liken's proposal, Wei Liken had used unknown means to persuade Wei Wuya to approach that senior sister directly. Though Nangong Wan did not know the exact terms of their exchange, 6 months later, during a weekend period in her Su Nu Reincarnation Art's reincarnation cycle, that senior sister suddenly acted to restrain her and forcibly arranged her marriage to Wei Liken. Hanli found this unbelievable, unable to comprehend why a fellow nascent soul cultivator would resort to such extreme measures. Nangong Wan explained with a mocking smile that they were simply too tempting. If the masked moon sect agreed to the marriage, Wei Wuya would not only allow the sect and the other 6 sects to expand beyond Bailing, but Wei Liken was even willing to leave the Huai sect and join the masked moon sect after the marriage. Faced with such a kill 2 birds with 1 stone arrangement, the senior sister spared no effort. Without caring whether Nangong Wan agreed, she first spread the news that Nangong Wan had consented to dual cultivation and began preparations for the celebration, attempting to force matters so that regret would be futile. Upon learning that Nangong Wan had never agreed to the marriage and that her earlier words had merely been a test, Hanli was overjoyed. Nangong Wan shot him a reproachful look, blaming him for not coming to find her earlier after reaching the nascent soul stage. Had he arrived even a year sooner, much of this trouble might have been avoided. Hanli opened his mouth to argue, but found himself at a loss for words. Though he vaguely sensed that Nangong Wan was the woman he truly loved, he had never dared to confront those feelings directly. Without this sudden upheaval, he might still be hesitating and retreating. Seeing his uncertainty, Nangong Wan stepped forward gracefully, looked him straight in the eyes, and calmly analyzed their emotional state. She believed that although their experiences and abilities far surpassed those of ordinary people, they were both novices when it came to matters of the heart, making awkwardness and fear inevitable. Cultivators, in order to temper their state of mind, were required to suppress and bury most emotions. What they sought was long-term mutual respect rather than the fleeting passion of the mortal world. She told Hanli that after learning he was still alive, she had spent 2 days and nights in deep contemplation before deciding to follow her heart and accept him. After speaking these gentle words, Nangong Wan took the initiative to hold Hanli's hand. He remained silent for a moment before placing his hand over hers. Feeling the warmth of her palm, a gentle warmth rose in his heart. After a brief moment of intimacy, Nangong Wan shyly withdrew her hand. Hanli then asked why she remained so calm despite being confined here, speculating that she must have a way to escape. Nangong Wan smiled, a trace of cunning flashing in her eyes. She admitted that although she was under house arrest, only a few high-level members were aware of it. To prevent her escape, multiple restrictions had been placed upon her. However, for someone like her, who practiced the reincarnation art and had already reached the nascent soul stage, ordinary restrictions could not trap her at all, and she could recover her strength at any moment. Only the heart-binding technique personally planted by that senior sister was truly troublesome. This restriction had been planted using essence blood, and its core lay in a restriction medallion. If the medallion was not destroyed, then as long as Nangong Wan remained within 100 miles, she would inevitably fall under its control. Fortunately, the difference in cultivation between the two was not great. The technique could only restrict basic movements and could not mobilize the spiritual power within her body. Nangong Wan had originally planned to recover her strength and escape on the eve of the wedding celebration, when the guards would be lax. All she needed to do was flee beyond the medallion's range of control. Now that Hanli had arrived, however, this difficult problem was naturally handed over to him. After hearing about the complications of the heart-binding technique, Hanli frowned slightly. Seeing this, Nangong Wan said that if it truly could not be broken, the two of them could simply flee far away together. Instead, a surge of heroic resolve rose in Hanli's heart. He declared that a mere medallion was nothing to fear. He was willing to go and seize it himself and vent her anger in the process. Nangong Wan hurriedly tried to dissuade him. She explained that she had only been testing his feelings, not truly intending for him to risk his life by stealing the medallion. After all, that senior sister was a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator with vast divine abilities. She suggested that they should still slip away secretly and refine the restriction later. Hanli, however, insisted on trying, confident that he could keep her safe. Seeing that she could not persuade him, Nangong Wan proposed a safer plan. Rather than storming the heavily guarded Luoyan Hall, it would be better to lure that senior sister here. By using the power of the cave dwelling's restrictions, they could ambush her by surprise. Hanli agreed, though he worried that the cave's restrictions had already been damaged. Nangong Wan reassured him that although the surface restrictions had been destroyed, there were still hidden, powerful ones intact. Hanli then mentioned that he also carried formation tools with him. Though their power was limited, they could still serve to restrain the opponent temporarily. After reaching an agreement, Nangong Wan needed half a day to break the remaining restrictions on her body and recover her spiritual power, while Hanli would be responsible for setting up the formation. During this time, Hanli asked whether they could take the opportunity to seize control of the moon-masking sect. Nangong Wan immediately rejected the idea. There was another nascent soul senior brother within the sect who would never allow her to assume power without legitimate justification. Moreover, she herself had no interest in authority, she only wished to cultivate in peace. Hearing this, Hanli decided that once everything was resolved, he would take her back to the Drifting Cloud sect. He believed that during the critical moment of the Mulan invasion, the Nine Nations Union and Wei Wuya would not dare easily provoke a force with two nascent soul cultivators. Hanli then took out formation flags and plates and began to work. Nangong Wan sat cross-legged, forming hand seals as crimson flames surged around her body, and she began to recover her power. Hanli moved swiftly through the hall, firing multicolored formation flags into various locations, setting up an exceptionally concealed formation. Considering that these formations might still lack sufficient power against a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator, he summoned Silver Moon after a moment of thought. Faced with her teasing, Hanli solemnly explained that this opponent was formidable and required her assistance. He temporarily lent her a treasure, believing that as an artifact spirit, she could unleash even greater power with it. Though somewhat disappointed that she could not keep it permanently, Silver Moon obediently accepted the treasure and vanished underground to lie in wait. Next, Hanli took out a spirit beast pouch and released a massive swarm of three-colored gold-devouring beetles. Wrapped in green light and driven by incantations, the beetle cloud transformed into star-like specks and merged into the ceiling, their aura completely concealed. They would serve as the final trump card. After finishing his preparations, Hanli carefully inspected the surroundings and confirmed there were no flaws. At this moment, the flames around Nangong Wan caused the surrounding spiritual energy to fluctuate violently. Hanli quickly cast a spell, activating a layer of green light curtains around the stone pillars to envelop her and isolate the disturbance. Having done so, Hanli sat down on a rattan chair, quietly gazing at Nangong Wan's face, soothing the longing that had accumulated over the years. However, before long, the infatuation in his eyes faded, and his expression turned grim. His figure blurred without warning and vanished. In the next instant, he appeared outside the hall, directly behind someone who was about to flee. His voice was cold as he questioned the intruder's presence. The peeper was none other than the yellow-robed girl who had guided him earlier. Overwhelmed by the immense spiritual pressure behind her, she stammered an excuse, claiming she was worried about the ancestor and had come to check. Hanli mercilessly exposed her lie, pointing out her sneaky behavior, concealed form, and the rare high-grade spirit concealment talisman she carried, clearly not something motivated by simple concern. The girl tried to argue, but Hanli had already lost patience. He ordered her to follow him back and await punishment. In her panic, the girl suddenly crushed another talisman, turning into a streak of light as she attempted to escape down the corridor. Hanli watched coldly, not even bothering to give chase. The escape light had only traveled a short distance when a cloud of fragrant pink mist burst forth from the wall. The light instantly dissipated, and the girl swayed before collapsing unconscious. Silver Moon leapt out from the wall, gracefully wagging her foxtail as she giggled and approached the fallen girl. The Sunset Hall of the Moon-Masking Sect was the exclusive residence of the great elders of past generations. It was located in a place rich in spiritual energy and protected by countless restrictions. Without the great elders' permission, even core elders were forbidden to approach. Amid this strict security, a foot-long streak of red light flew in from afar. After circling the outer restrictions several times, it passed through them effortlessly and entered the hall, finally hovering before a woman of cold and beautiful demeanor, the current great elder of the Moon-Masking Sect. She seemed to have expected this. With a wave of her hand, she caught the fireball formed by the red light. After reading its contents, the fireball extinguished. Learning that the stubborn Nangong Wan had requested a meeting and appeared to have softened her stance, the great elder felt surprised. However, true to her decisive nature, she immediately transformed into a white streak of light and flew straight toward Nangong Wan's cave dwelling. Not long after, she landed outside the cave and cautiously scanned the surroundings. Seeing that the external restriction formation was still incomplete, with no signs of repair, she finally felt at ease and calmly entered. Inside, a yellow-robed girl had already been waiting. She bowed respectfully upon seeing the great elder arrive. After casually commenting on the girl's cultivation and confirming she had taken the bestowed pills, the great elder asked about Nangong Wan's condition. According to the girl's report, Nangong Wan had only met a low-ranking sect manager half a day earlier and received a gift, with no other unusual activity. The great elder grew curious, asking what kind of gift could unsettle Nangong Wan. Upon learning it was merely a crude silver sword and that Nangong Wan had deliberated for a long time before requesting the meeting, she speculated it was likely a keepsake from an old rogue cultivator acquaintance. Though surprised, she believed this might be the turning point that caused Nangong Wan to change her mind. Before approaching the hall, she reminded the girl to continue monitoring Nangong Wan with the high-grade talisman, promising a generous reward afterward. As she prepared to scan the hall with her divine sense, Nangong Wan's calm voice suddenly rang out, stating that for the sake of the sect's interests, she could reluctantly agree to marry Wei Lycan, provided one condition was met. Hearing this, the great elder was overjoyed, her mind instantly filled with visions of the Moon-Masking Sect flourishing under Wei Wuya's support. She strode into the hall, eagerly agreeing to any condition. But when she saw the scene inside, she froze. Nangong Wan sat calmly on a rattan chair, holding a crudely refined giant silver sword, completely absorbed in examining it, as if the great elder's promises did not exist. Suspicion rose in the great elder's heart. Her steps slowed, and just as she was about to speak, her instincts flared. Without hesitation, she lashed out with sword light toward the yellow-robed girl behind her. The girl smiled strangely and instantly sank into the ground using Earth Escape, leaving behind only torn clothing. Realizing she had been tricked, the great elder immediately attempted to retreat, but a massive green sword slashed down from outside with terrifying momentum. With a furious flick of her fingers, she sent 10 streaks of cold light to meet it. A deafening explosion followed, and both sides were forced back. The green sword dissolved into dozens of flying swords, revealing Han Li standing calmly at their center. Seeing his cultivation, the great elder's eyes narrowed. She questioned Nangong Wan about Han Li's identity and the impersonator. Then she produced a red medallion, the key to the heart-binding technique. Han Li's gaze darkened. Snorting coldly, the great elder threatened him, declaring this an internal matter of the Moon-Masking Sect. Nangong Wan rose gracefully, countering that she herself held status within the 6 sects and warning of the consequences if the truth spread. Before she finished speaking, she released her natal treasure, the vermilion bird ring, taking a firm battle stance. The great elder responded in silence, sending out 2 flying swords, one white, one black, expanding into massive yin-yang ice fire swords, while she began chanting incantations, gripping the medallion tightly. Attempting to activate the restriction, the Grand Elder found that Hanli, who had long been prepared, naturally would not allow her to succeed. With a raise of his hand, he sent out a small silver bell. The bell circled above his head, its mouth aimed directly at the Grand Elder, emitting a low hum. A pale silver sound wave shot toward her in an instant. At the same time, Hanli raised both hands and struck out 2 incantation seals, one red and one green, activating the formation he had already laid out in the hall. In an instant, the restriction was triggered. Rolling red and green light surged from all directions, sweeping toward the Grand Elder together with the sound wave. Faced with this pincer attack, the Grand Elder's expression remained unchanged. She pointed forward, and a black and white flying shuttle spun out of thin air. Cold chi and blazing heat erupted simultaneously, forming a strange black and white light shield that blocked all the sound wave attacks. Though submerged in the restriction's light, she stood as steady as Mount Tai. At this moment, Nangong Wan also launched her attack. The vermilion bird ring transformed into a massive fireball and smashed down toward the center with overwhelming momentum. Under the cover of this dazzling assault, she covertly shot out an evil-slaying spike. With his powerful spiritual sense, Hanli immediately caught this hidden move. As expected, a muffled groan came from within the sea of light. The Grand Elder had clearly suffered a concealed blow. Although her voice still sounded vigorous, indicating only a light injury, Nangong Wan's strike had successfully interrupted her attempt to activate the token. Seizing the opportunity, Hanli flipped his hand and sent out the thousand-layer peak. The small black mountain grew wildly in midair, expanding to 50 or 60 feet tall, and was about to smash down. When suddenly, from within the raging sea of fire, a 5-colored light beam as thick as a bowl shot out. With unstoppable force, it swept away the surrounding light and flames. A clear ringing sound followed, and Nangong Wan's vermilion bird ring was abruptly trapped within the beam. No matter how it struggled, it could not break free. Hanli looked closely and immediately recognized it as the ancient treasure Nangong Wan had once mentioned, the condensing light mirror. The mirror was pitch black, its surface deep and eerie. The 5-colored beam it emitted was astonishingly powerful, far superior to the imitation-clear condensing mirror Hanli had once possessed. At this moment, the Grand Elder's figure reappeared. One hand formed a seal while the other held the mirror. The token she had used earlier was nowhere to be seen. Instead, her hand was drenched in blood, clearly wounded by the evil-slaying spike. Seeing Nangong Wan's treasure trapped, Hanli silently urged the thousand-layer peak hovering above. The black mountain instantly teleported above the Grand Elder's head and pressed down violently. The Grand Elder sneered. Tilting the condensing light mirror upward, she fired another 5-colored light beam. Hanli had already anticipated this. He changed his hand seal, and the bottom of the thousand-layer peak sprayed out a vast amount of black light, colliding violently with the beam. The black light swallowed the 5-colored radiance for a moment, covering the Grand Elder's protective shield. The shield trembled violently, its spiritual energy turning chaotic. The Grand Elder's expression changed slightly, and she spat a mouthful of essence chi onto the mirror's surface. Instantly, the 5-colored beam thickened, transforming into a radiant glow that forcefully held up the black mountain. The two sides were locked in a stalemate in midair, muffled explosive sounds continuously echoing. Seeing this, Nangong Wan desperately urged the vermilion bird ring, attempting to break free from the restraint. The battle evolved into a tense 3-way confrontation. As the deadlock formed, all three revealed even more powerful methods. Hanli slapped his spirit beast pouch, and countless golden gold-devouring beetles swarmed out, forming a ferocious golden insect cloud. At the same time, Nangong Wan began chanting an incantation. Above her head, the crimson reincarnation divine light appeared, flowing like liquid fire, dazzling as Buddha's radiance. Upon seeing this, the Grand Elder's face darkened. She was indifferent to Hanli's insect swarm, but extremely wary of Nangong Wan's desperate activation of the reincarnation divine light. Snorting coldly, She sent out a small emerald banner and simultaneously spat out a blood-red, translucent small sword, the Blood Demon Sword. The blade was only a few inches long, with wisps of black chi wandering within. It trembled and hummed on its own, emitting a thick, nauseating aura of blood. Seeing the Blood Demon Sword, Nangong Wan's expression turned icy. She questioned when her senior sister had refined such a demonic tool, and whether she was not afraid of the inevitable demonic backlash. The Grand Elder, however, was brimming with confidence. She claimed it would not take long to defeat them, leaving the demonic chi no chance to backlash. She then issued a final ultimatum, demanding to know whether Nangong Wan truly refused to sacrifice for the sect by marrying Wei Lycan. She coldly warned that once the Blood Demon Sword revealed its might, she might not be able to restrain its power, and if Nangong Wan were injured, she should not blame her senior sister for being heartless. Han Li ignored the Blood Demon Sword entirely and calmly answered in Nangong Wan's stead. They would never agree to this marriage. She should give up completely. Hearing this, a cold light flashed in the Grand Elder's eyes, and killing intent surged forth. She stared at Han Li suspiciously, searching her memory, but unable to identify this nascent soul cultivator with such terrifying abilities. However, hearing the intimacy in Han Li's tone when addressing Nangong Wan, she suddenly realized that Nangong Wan's long-standing refusal to marry must be because of the man before her. Han Li's voice remained calm and steady. He was not shaken by the current situation, merely stating his stance. His identity was irrelevant. What mattered was why she insisted on being so stubborn. He proposed that if she handed over the token and released the heart-binding restriction, they would leave immediately. As for the Blood Demon Sword she relied upon, he admitted he did not know its origin, but bluntly stated that it posed no threat to him, advising her not to place excessive hope in it. These casual words thoroughly enraged the Grand Elder. She mocked Han Li's arrogance, accusing him of not understanding the terror of the Blood Demon Sword. Her killing intent surged. She believed that only by killing Han Li first could she force Nangong Wan to change her mind. Before she finished speaking, her expression turned savage. She suddenly bit the tip of her tongue and spat a mouthful of pure essence blood onto the humming blood-red sword. As her hands rapidly formed incantation seals, the originally short blade absorbed the blood and instantly erupted with crimson light, growing to 3 feet long. The sword body became entirely scarlet, emitting an unbearably thick stench of blood. Facing this terrifying demonic weapon, the Grand Elder showed no hesitation. She grasped the hilt with her slender hand, spiritual power surging wildly as she poured it into the sword without restraint. Seeing this, Nangong Wan's expression changed drastically. Knowing the terrifying power of the Blood Demon Sword, she could no longer remain calm. She cried out anxiously, telling Han Li not to let the Grand Elder take the initiative. In desperation, Nangong Wan did not wait for the reincarnation divine light to fully condense. She forcibly pushed the massive, moon-like halo above her head. The halo trembled violently and spun at high speed. In the next instant, a demonic yet beautiful rainbow shot out like a divine swan streaking across the heavens, rushing straight toward the Grand Elder. The Grand Elder countered calmly. Without even glancing up, she tossed out a small triangular banner. The moment it left her hand, it transformed into a vast expanse of eerie emerald green mist, intercepting Nangong Wan's attack. Amid flickering light, the rainbow plunged into the mist with a dull roar. Though it was as fierce as a dragon emerging from water and gained the upper hand initially, charging wildly in all directions, the green mist clung to it like a shadow. Under the Grand Elder's control, it wrapped around the rainbow layer by layer, temporarily trapping it. Nangong Wan's face turned pale, while a smug smile appeared on the Grand Elder's lips. Without hesitation, the Grand Elder swept the blood-red longsword and slashed down viciously toward the void above Han Li's head. This strike was incomparably heavy. Violent spatial fluctuations followed, and a massive sword chi, several yards long, appeared out of thin air. Crimson like blood, it emitted a sky-piercing evil aura and slashed mercilessly toward Han Li. This single strike seemed to drain most of the Grand Elder's essence chi. Her face flushed repeatedly, and the light of the blood sword dimmed. At the same time, the surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth was instantly sucked dry by the sword chi, flowing toward it like rivers returning to the sea. Hanli felt his entire body tighten as an invisible, violent force bound him completely. He could not form seals, cast spells, or even move a single finger. He could only watch as the terrifying sword chi slowly descended. Seeing this, Nangong Wan's face turned deathly pale, while mockery filled the Grand Elder's expression. Just as both believed Hanli was doomed, he stared fixedly at the descending sword chi and took a deep breath. In an instant, thunder roared and golden light erupted. Pale golden arcs of electricity instantly spread across his entire body. The Grand Elder was momentarily stunned, and before she could react, the blood-red sword chi slashed into this layer of lightning. Explosions rang out as golden lightning and crimson sword chi intertwined violently. The massive sword chi flickered wildly, struggling left and right, yet it could not sever the seemingly fragile electric arcs. Instead, it was wrapped layer by layer, thrashing like a giant fish caught in a net. With the appearance of the evil-warding divine thunder, the restriction binding Hanli instantly vanished. He gazed at the entangled sword chi in surprise, sensing that although the thunder had trapped it, the divine lightning itself was being rapidly consumed. If he had not released nearly a third of his divine thunder reserves in one go, it would have been uncertain whether he could have restrained the strange sword chi at all. This was the first time he had encountered demonic evil chi that the evil-warding divine thunder could not completely suppress. Naturally, Hanli would not sit idly by and let both sides exhaust each other. His expression darkened as he raised both hands. Two thick golden lightning arcs burst forth, striking the blood-red sword chi through the lightning net. Under the violent bombardment, the sword chi let out a mournful wail and finally dissipated, turning into a small cloud of blood mist. Hanli pointed with a finger, and the golden net instantly shrank, wrapping the blood mist into a fist-sized golden sphere that fell into his palm. By now, the Grand Elder was completely dumbfounded, and Nangong Wan stood frozen in shock. The full power strike of the Blood Demon Sword had actually failed. Such demonic tools were infamous throughout Tianan, mysterious in origin, terrifying in power, capable of killing without refinement, and nearly impossible to block. Yet now it had been suppressed. Hanli did not give his opponent even a moment to recover. Letting out a low shout, he caused the golden insect cloud hovering nearby to suddenly buzz loudly. The golden insect cloud surged toward the Grand Elder from all directions like a raging tide. Shocked and enraged, the Grand Elder suddenly spat out a small silver arrow. As her hands rapidly formed incantation seals, the arrow erupted with brilliant light and instantly transformed into thousands of extremely fine silver threads that shot straight toward the golden cloud. This was the profound sword cultivation art, transforming sword into silk. The countless silver threads collided with the golden insect cloud, producing an unbroken series of sharp, crackling explosions. Large numbers of golden beetles were struck down and fell, and the cloud immediately thinned. Hanli's heart sank. For a moment, he thought that the gold-devouring beetles truly could not contend with a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator. Seeing this, the Grand Elder finally felt a trace of relief, believing victory was now within her grasp. However, Hanli's concern quickly turned into delight. The fallen beetles were not injured at all. They merely vibrated their wings, rose back into the air, and swiftly regrouped into a dense cloud, once again pouncing toward the Grand Elder with terrifying ferocity. At the same time, a clear phoenix cry echoed from within the green mist behind her. In the next instant, 10,000 rays of light burst forth as the green mist was completely swept away, revealing a blazing crimson full moon. The moon flashed brilliantly and cast its light directly onto the Grand Elder. Her expression changed drastically. She immediately realized that facing Hanli and Nangong Wan together, she stood no chance of winning alone. Without hesitation, she twisted her body and transformed into a black and white streak of light, shooting upward as she attempted to break through the ceiling and flee. Her plan was to rally the sect's disciples outside and activate the grand formation of the moon-masking sect to trap and annihilate the two of them. Nangong Wan reacted just a fraction too late. The Grand Elder's escape light instantly reached the top of the hall, but a dull, heavy thud echoed out. The streak of light was abruptly blocked and failed to break through the ceiling. It turned out that Hanli had already commanded a swarm of 3 colored insects to gather above, forming a massive shield that sealed off her escape route. The Grand Elder was startled. Without thinking further, she took out a silver-patterned talisman and activated it. Yellow light enveloped her body as she charged upward again like a falling meteor. This time, the yellow light passed straight through the insect shield as if it were nothing, fleeing toward the rear of the ceiling. But almost simultaneously, Nangong Wan activated a hidden restriction within the cave dwelling. The entire hall flashed crimson as a dazzling layer of red light appeared. When the yellow escape light collided with it, instead of passing through, it was drawn in and wrapped up as if attracted by a magnet. The Grand Elder was horrified. She immediately recognized this as an extremely powerful restriction. Making a decisive move, she flicked her fingers and unleashed a bone-chilling white sword aura, shredding the red light apart. With a flash of yellow brilliance, she broke free and dove straight into the ceiling once more. However, just as half of her body had entered, a flash of purple light appeared before her eyes. A shimmering purple net descended from above, violently dragging her back down from the ceiling. In a flash of silver light, a graceful woman dressed in white emerged Inwe. She stood in midair, holding the gold and silver threads connected to the purple net. Only then did the Grand Elder realize she had been ensnared by a treasure known as the purple net. Furious and alarmed, she lashed out with black and white sword chi and spat emerald green flames toward the net. Yet every attack was silently absorbed, leaving the purple net completely unharmed. At this sight, the Grand Elder completely lost her composure. Just as she was about to use a secret art that consumed her essence to forcibly escape, Inwe let out a soft chuckle. With a single command, the purple net tightened instantly, binding the Grand Elder firmly. As a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator, she had never suffered such humiliation. Shame and rage twisted her expression. A cold light flickered in her eyes as spiritual power erupted violently around her, her pupils faintly turning blood-red, clear signs of demonic desperation. Just as Inwe was about to take measures to suppress her, Nangong Wan hurriedly cried out, asking her to stop and spare her senior sister's life. Immediately afterward, a fiery red moon rose from below, enveloping the Grand Elder in its radiance. The moon spun rapidly, releasing a blurred crimson glow that filled the entire hall. With only a single glance, Hanli felt dizzy, deeply alarmed by the terrifying power of this reincarnation divine light. After the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, the red moon finally dissipated. The Grand Elder was revealed once more, still bound by the purple net, but her once overwhelming spiritual aura had completely calmed. She lay unconscious, an inexplicable smile frozen on her face. Nangong Wan explained that this divine light could suppress even a nascent soul cultivator and possessed powerful soul-confusing properties, temporarily rendering her senior sister unconscious. Seeing Hanli's confusion, Nangong Wan sighed softly and admitted that her senior sister had once treated her well. Moreover, if she were killed, the moon-masking sect would inevitably fall into chaos. She did not wish to see the sect suffer such a calamity. Hanli could only sigh at her mercy toward an enemy. Though he understood her reasoning, he urged her to quickly retrieve the restriction token so they could leave at once. Inwe withdrew the purple net and released the unconscious Grand Elder. Nangong Wan stepped forward, applied several additional restrictions, and retrieved an emerald storage bag from her waist. After shaking out its contents, she happily found the token used to control the heart-binding technique. Meanwhile, Hanli reached out and picked up a dull black ring. He then produced a jade box containing an identical ring and quietly put them both away. Nangong Wan then approached her senior sister and used magic to force out the blood-red small sword, the Blood Demon Sword. Knowing how dangerous its demonic chi was, she had no intention of using it. Since Han Li's golden lightning could restrain it, she handed it to him for safekeeping. Though Han Li did not yet know its exact origin, he understood the risk of demonic backlash and accepted it without hesitation, determined to prevent Nangong Wan from ever using such a perilous object. As for the other ancient treasures, such as the condensing light mirror, Nangong Wan clearly had no intention of taking them, both to preserve her senior sister's dignity and to avoid future trouble, given the mirror's fame. She then placed the restriction token between her palms and gently rubbed it. Red light flashed, and a stream of eerie, ink-black chi emerged. As she pulled her hands apart, the token crumbled into nothingness and completely dissipated. Only then did Nangong Wan state that the heart-binding technique had finally been lifted. Before leaving, however, she decided to leave a message for her senior sister. Taking out a white jade slip, she pressed it to her smooth forehead and recorded her words with divine sense. After some time, she returned the jade slip to the storage bag and carefully hung it back at the Grand Elder's waist. Having settled everything, Nangong Wan smiled gently at Han Li and explained shyly that her senior sister would not awaken for at least a full day and night. They departed together, their spiritual power merging into a brilliant rainbow that shot out of the hall. Later, atop a nameless mountain at the border of Beilang, Nangong Wan voiced her dissatisfaction at being sent back to the drifting cloud sect alone. Han Li patiently explained that he needed to investigate matters in Tian City involving Mu Peeling and senior brother Lu, likely tied to the Mulan invasion. Though still worried, she accepted his reasoning. Before parting, she gave him an ancient gauze-like handkerchief treasure for protection, followed by a jade pendant that could summon her disciples in Tian City should he need assistance. Touched by her care, Han Li accepted everything solemnly. A month later, Han Li appeared alone in the sky outside Tian City, gazing silently at the vast city ahead. After bidding farewell to Nangong Wan, he had immediately headed toward the State of Yu. However, while on his journey, Han Li heard news from the border between Fengmuan and Yu. The war had officially begun. The reports were shocking. The main force of the Nine Nations Union had suffered consecutive defeats. They were forced to rely on several powerful restrictive formations just to barely hold on to a few key strategic locations. It was obvious that the Union was already at a severe disadvantage. Han Li frowned deeply upon hearing this. Unfortunately, no one knew the exact details or the true cause of the defeat. With no further information to be had, he could only continue onward. After entering the State of Yu, Han Li learned from other cultivators that the Mulan spellcasters had somehow brought several great savage beasts onto the battlefield, completely catching the Union's cultivators off guard. This sudden development was the direct cause of their crushing defeat. The news shocked Han Li to the core. He immediately traveled through the night and rushed straight to Tian City. At this time, although the city's flight restrictions had been lifted, most of the power of the Shangyuan light extinguishing formation had instead been activated. Above the entire city, strange and turbulent spiritual energy fluctuations filled the air. Tian City had clearly entered a full wartime state. After observing for a moment, Han Li transformed into a streak of intertwined green and red light and flew directly toward the city gate. 7 or 8 cultivators were stationed there as guards. One of them, a core formation elder, noticed Han Li's dazzling escape light and his unfathomable cultivation. He initially intended to question him, but after sweeping him with his spiritual sense and sensing the terrifying depth of Han Li's strength, his expression instantly changed. The elder hurriedly bowed and respectfully asked whether Senior had come to attend the alliance meeting. Han Li replied calmly that he knew nothing of such a meeting, then identified himself as Han Li of the Drifting Cloud Sect, a member of the Heavenly Tao Alliance. The elder dared not show the slightest negligence. He quickly explained that the Mulan had launched a fierce offensive, prompting the Nine Nations Union to send invitations to all major forces to form an alliance. Since Han Li belonged to the Heavenly Tao Alliance, he only needed to state his name to enter the city. Without conducting any further verification, The elder immediately stepped aside and respectfully escorted Hanli into the city. Once inside, Hanli discovered that the streets were far emptier than usual. The cultivators who remained all wore anxious and heavy expressions. Clearly, news of the defeat had already spread. With a calm expression, Hanli headed toward his former residence. Extending his spiritual sense, he detected a faint spiritual fluctuation on the second floor and confirmed that Mu Peeling was still there. Without making a sound, he broke through the restriction and entered the room. Mu Peeling, who had been meditating, opened her eyes at once. Upon seeing Hanli, her face filled with surprise and joy. Hanli sighed softly and explained that since she and senior brother Lu had not left as agreed, he naturally had to return and check on them. As he spoke, he suddenly noticed that Mu Peeling had broken through her bottleneck and advanced to the mid-foundation establishment stage. Smiling, he congratulated her. Mu Peeling excitedly replied that it was all thanks to the young master's pills. She then explained why they had been delayed. Just as the trade fair had ended, news of the Mulan spellcasters' invasion arrived. As the Heavenly Tao Alliance's representative stationed here, senior brother Lu had been forced to remain in Tian City to discuss countermeasures. She could only stay with him. Just as Hanli was asking about senior brother Lu's current situation, a young man's voice suddenly rang out from outside the building, calling Mu Peeling by name. Hanli released his spiritual sense and discovered that the caller was an elegant-looking core formation cultivator. Mu Peeling's face immediately paled. She hurriedly explained that this person was Bai Shujun, a disciple under an elder of the Tianji sect. Ever since he had seen her a few days ago, he had relentlessly pursued her. Even after she revealed her identity, he refused to give up. Out of respect for Bai Shujun's master, senior brother Lu had instructed her to deal with him politely for the time being. Upon hearing that the other party was merely a core formation cultivator, yet dared to behave so insolently, Hanli's eyes turned cold. He decided to go downstairs and see what this man truly wanted. Hanli led Mu Peeling out of the building. When Bai Shujun saw that the person who emerged was not the woman he desired, but instead an unfathomable senior expert, he froze in shock. The moment he realized Hanli's cultivation was immeasurable, his expression changed drastically. Hanli coldly questioned his identity. Though startled, Bai Shujun did not panic. He claimed to be a disciple under Elder Lu of the Tianji sect. He admitted that his master wished to meet Hanli, but then, recklessly and without restraint, declared that he truly loved Mu Peeling and asked Hanli to grant his wish. Hanli sneered, stating that he had no habit of giving away his concubine. With that, he released an overwhelming spiritual pressure. Bai Shujun instantly felt as if Mount Tai were pressing down upon him. His legs went weak, his body trembling violently, and he nearly collapsed to his knees. Just as he was about to fall, a white shadow flashed. A kind-looking elder in white robes appeared and lightly patted Bai Shujun, instantly dispersing Hanli's pressure. This person was none other than Elder Lu Weiying of the Tianji sect. Smiling apologetically, Elder Lu explained to Hanli that allowing his disciple to pester Mu Peeling was merely a way to draw out the long-absent Hanli. Without showing the slightest anger, Elder Lu flicked his wrist and tossed Hanli a green jade slip, inviting him to a gathering that evening, promising that all details would be explained then. Hanli accepted the jade slip and calmly watched the master and disciple depart. Though he found the entire situation strange and suspected some misunderstanding, he did not dwell on it. He then brought Mu Peeling back inside. Once inside, Hanli asked about senior brother Lu's whereabouts. Mu Peeling explained that the situation at the front lines was extremely critical. Senior brother Lu was currently at the Tian City Council Hall, discussing countermeasures with representatives from various factions. Hearing this, Hanli immediately decided to go and take a look himself to learn more about the Mulan spellcasters. The council hall was located beneath the high platform at the city's center. Normally symbolic in nature, it had been fully opened due to the war. With his nascent soul cultivation, Hanli easily gained entry. There were only about a dozen cultivators inside. At a glance, Hanli spotted senior brother Lu seated on the left, smiling at him, with the fire dragon child beside him. Among the crowd, he also noticed a familiar figure, Ancestor Linghu of the former Yellow Fortune Valley. This caused Hanli to sigh inwardly. Ancestor Linghu glanced at Hanli with the same indifferent expression as ever. It was impossible to tell whether he truly did not recognize this once insignificant Foundation establishment disciple, or whether he had simply mastered the art of concealing all emotion. After entering, Hanli's gaze swept across the hall. Besides the familiar faces, two figures seated at the center stood out prominently. One was a purple-faced elder, and the other was a dignified woman in palace attire, radiating elegance and nobility. Hanli lightly extended his spiritual sense and felt a jolt in his heart. Both of their cultivations had reached the mid-nascent soul stage. They were clearly the leaders of the Nine Nations Union. As Hanli observed them, the other cultivators also turned their gazes toward the young man who had just entered. Most showed visible surprise. In the cultivation world, youth-preserving techniques suitable for male cultivators were rare, and Hanli's youthful appearance naturally drew attention. At this moment, senior brother Lu smiled and spoke, explaining that they were discussing the war against the Mulan with sect leader Wu and warmly invited Hanli to take a seat. The fire dragon child also nodded at him with a friendly smile. Hanli returned the gesture, cupped his hands toward the others, and sat down beside senior brother Lu. As soon as he was seated, the purple-faced elder began speaking. He introduced himself as Wu Peng, sect leader of the Bei sect. His tone was polite as he praised Hanli, saying he had heard that Hanli formed his nascent soul in just over 200 years, calling him a rare genius of the heavenly south and even expressing hope that he might one day attain the great Tao. Though Wu Peng's cultivation was currently higher, he showed no hint of condescension. Hanli responded humbly, stating that his advancement was due to luck and that he dared not speak of the great Tao. The Bei sect stood alongside the Huai sect as one of the two great pillars of the Nine Nations Union, so Hanli naturally maintained proper courtesy. As they exchanged pleasantries, Hanli's gaze briefly swept over the middle-aged beauty beside Wu Peng. He silently speculated that she must be an expert from the Huai sect. Sure enough, Wu Peng soon introduced her as Madame Qi of the Huai sect, who jointly managed the union's affairs with him. He then proceeded to introduce the other cultivators one by one. When Ancestor Linghu was introduced, the latter merely responded faintly, showing no special reaction. Hanli likewise nodded calmly. Both acted as though they were complete strangers. Once the introductions were complete, Wu Peng's expression turned solemn, and he returned to the matter at hand. He revealed that the Mulan spellcaster's offensive had far exceeded expectations. More defeat reports had arrived from the front. Elder Yu and others had suffered a disastrous loss, and two crucial restrictive formations had been forcibly destroyed by the enemy's giant beasts. The Nine Nations Union had suffered severe casualties. Even fellow Taoist Huan of the Shadow sect had fallen. This marked the second nascent soul cultivator to perish since the war began. The severity of the situation was undeniable. As Wu Peng spoke, the previously relaxed atmosphere vanished. The cultivators' expressions turned grim. An elder in green robes from the Yulin sect spoke up in a hoarse voice, questioning how nascent soul cultivators could be falling so rapidly unless the enemy had deployed large numbers of high-level spellcasters. Wu Peng replied that no such large-scale deployment had been detected. The fallen nascent soul cultivators had both died in one-on-one battles, not due to ambush. This shocked everyone present. Wu Peng then revealed the truth. The attackers were merely too early, nascent soul spellcasters, but they were extremely abnormal. Their spells far exceeded those of their peers, and they possessed a bizarre treasure that emitted black and red light. Under its influence, once a nascent soul left the body, it was trapped and unable to teleport away. This was the true cause of their deaths. The moment teleportation was mentioned, everyone, including Hanli, felt their faces pale. The reason nascent soul cultivators were so difficult to kill lay precisely in that escapability. Now, a treasure capable of suppressing it had appeared. When asked about the treasure's origin, Wu Peng hesitated. Madame Chi took over, explaining that according to frontline reports, those two spellcasters appeared in human and even devoured souls directly on the battlefield. Their methods were cruel and indiscriminate. Thus, the Union suspected they might be transformed alien beings or demonic cultivators, walking the path of ghosts and devils. Even more alarming was that the great savage beasts accompanying the Mulan army seemed connected to these mysterious figures. This raised the possibility that the Mulan had colluded with other external forces to launch such a massive invasion. Hearing this, Ancestor Linghu and the others were deeply shaken. Wu Peng added grimly that if the threat were merely beasts, it could still be managed, but if it involved unknown forces, the danger would be far greater. At this point, Hanli finally spoke. After confirming that the information came from the latest battle reports, he calmly analyzed that regardless of whether the enemy was human or demon, their reckless early offensive meant they no longer intended to wage a prolonged war of attrition. Instead, the Mulan were likely aiming for a lightning strike to force a decisive battle with the Heavenly South's main forces. He speculated that something major must have occurred within the Mulan Prairie, forcing them to change strategy. His words caused Wu Peng and Madame Chi's expressions to change drastically. The other nascent soul cultivators also fell silent, their hearts heavy. Wu Peng admitted the possibility with a bitter smile and emphasized the need to immediately mobilize all sects in the Heavenly South to send a second wave of reinforcements. Otherwise, being picked off one by one would spell disaster. Madame Chi further suggested summoning Elder Wei Wuya and the three great cultivators of the Heavenly South. As the Mulan's divine master, level experts would inevitably be deployed. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, everyone agreed and immediately sent messages back to their respective sects. After hastily finalizing deployment details and deciding to send reinforcements to buy time, the meeting ended in urgency, and the cultivators departed one after another. Okay, that end Oppos. All the content for this video. If you enjoyed it, please don't end Oppos. Hesitate to like, share, and subscribe. After all, your support is my motivation to keep creating content. I end Oppos, M. Hanli. See you in the next video.